What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Phaithful Phanatics show, live here exclusively on DSM-Media's Philadelphia YouTube channel. Guys, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. It is the best spot to get your thoughts, comments, and questions pulled up here on the screen with your host. I'm one half of them this morning, Dylan Davis. To my right, my faithful co-host, Scotty. And what a beautiful, happy Friday morning it is, my man. The Philadelphia Phillies are headed back to the NLCS for the second consecutive year. And while the Atlanta Braves get the red carpet their ass straight out of Philadelphia and get to plan their 2024 season a little early, how are you doing on this Friday morning, my man?
Yeah, man, couldn't be a better Friday here in October without the Phillies obviously taking the Braves to the woodshed and sending them home, sending them packing. Got to be one of the most loser franchises in like the last 10 years when you're talking about this Braves team that's gone back-to-back season, over 100 wins in the regular season and outed in their first playoff series in back-to-back seasons against the same exact team, the Titans. And it's got to be embarrassing. You know, I was thinking while I'm rejoicing this morning, taking my wife to work and just driving through Philadelphia, and I was just thinking like, man, you know, it like crept into my head and then I kicked it out. I was listening to John Kincaid and, you know, I was thinking about Atlanta fans and where they've got to be mentally right now. Because, you know, people say stuff about the Philadelphia fans and we get on everybody's nerves and that's fine. Like we really don't care. But it has to hurt every single time when we do beat you in a big spot. And we're going to rub it in as much as we can because that's just
it's going to start this morning.
We have to go through the hurt, the pain all the time. Well, whenever we get these moments, we're going to rub it right in your fucking face. And, you know, I was just thinking, man, has to be a lonely, sour, depressing drive to work for Atlanta fans this morning. And, you know, thinking about lonely and depressing, the flight back to Atlanta, the flight for the Braves out to their golf tournament for the off season.
Go to Enterprise.
Or going to Cancun.
Go to Enterprise. Get a rental car. Drive back down to Atlanta, Georgia. Sit with your thoughts and get it out of your heads, man. Take
the long drive back just so you can get all the thoughts and get it all through.
Yeah.
I don't know if that Acuna report. I sent it to you before the show.
Listen,
I don't
it was
know
reported
if
on New York. I think the tweet was by New York Times, so
that is so loser.
From what I've seen, and we're going to get into all of it, man. We're going to get into the series itself, the Phillies, Nick Castellanos, Bryce Harper, and Trey Turner, everybody. We're going to get into what went right for the Phillies, what went wrong for the Braves, their loser fan base, their loser players, their loser organization, all the rumors, all the excuse. My God, Orlando Arcia, like he's 4 years old with his head out of a school bus window. It's unbelievable. And this was the most ironic thing to me. As, by the way, I watched the Matt Strom third strike, Phillies head to the NLCS celebration video 900 times since I've been up in the last hour, right? And this was the ironic part to me. How many times over the last 2 or 3 games was I sitting here bitching and complaining about the first base umpire with check swings for the Phillies? JT didn't go. Boehm didn't go last night. Meanwhile, Atlanta, they don't even show the goddamn replay when Atlanta check swings and it's all good. And then to wrap up the NLDS, Vaughn Grisham gets his first plate appearance of the entire series and goes around and ends the Braves season. Dude, it was beautiful. This team is unreal, and I tweeted this out last night. I think I've said this to you on the show before, but I'm going to reiterate it once again before we get into the series itself and all the big plays. If you've known me for a little while now. Football has always come first. Like, it's just like, it's almost like a religion thing, like football Sundays, college football. So with that, the Eagles come first, and this has always been an Eagles first town in Philadelphia. This is my favorite sports team of all time. There's just some, not only are they uber talented, there's something about them, the vibe, the egos on this team, like it's immaculate, dude. And it just feels like when you hear Bryce Harper when you see Bryce Harper emulate this city on the field and then hear him talk about it in his post-game press conference after a huge win like the other night, this is my favorite team of all time, man. I know I watched the Eagles win a Super Bowl a few years ago. I watched the Phillies team with some of my favorite Phillies of all time, Chase Utley, Jimmy Rollins, Shea Victorino, Ryan Howard. I watched them as a little kid win a World Series. I haven't even watched this team get to the World Series. There's just something about them, man. Johan Rojas with maybe the play of the game. So let's get into it, Scotty.
Yeah.
Obviously, Phillies send the Braves home in 4 for the second consecutive year. And I think that's the biggest point to me. Listen, you can talk about – I saw a tweet this morning. You can talk about umpires. You can talk about someone brought up the Phillies were using weighted balls last night for Acuna's at bat with Kimbrel when he just missed the wall. You could talk about the fans. You could talk about the playoff format and how many days off that they had as the 1 seed and yada, yada, yada. The bottom line is you did not just lose to the Philadelphia Phillies. You got dog walked by the Philadelphia Phillies. Over 4 games, the Atlanta Braves held a lead, and I'm not kidding, for 3 or 4 innings.
Yeah, maybe.
From the bottom of the 6th through the top of the 9th in Game 2, they held a 1-run lead. From the top of the 3rd to the bottom of the 3rd in Game 3, they held a 1-run lead. Yeah. And from the top of the 4th to the bottom of the 4th last night, they held a 1-run lead. Half an inning, 2.5 innings in Game 2. You got absolutely dominated by the Philadelphia Phillies. So miss me with all your excuses and your conspiracy theories on the Phillies cheating and the fans and the playoff format and yada, yada, yada. You got your asses kicked.
Yeah.
And it was so beautiful, dude.
Yeah, they got dominated. And it's funny because, we look at what Brett said there in the comments. Or actually, my bad. It was actually TR or Chile there. Said they look so much more focused this year. And I think it's like a level of focus, a level of concentration, but just also a level of confidence. Like, they came into this series knowing that they own the playoffs. They own the postseason, especially against this Braves team. And I loved what Pat Egan was talking about on the morning show with John Kincaid this morning. He was basically saying, look at the difference in the dugouts, right? You look over at the Braves, you got Acuna at the end of the game laughing, joking around with Ozzie Albies. But then you go over to the other dugout and you've seen in the past, Bryce Harper is locked in, looking through there's that meme going around of him looking through the game, but that's the way they watch the game. Their concentration, they're locked in on the game, even when they're not at the plate or they're not out in the field. They're locked into the game, and every single pitch, every single at bat counts, and they know that. And you can feel that within them. And it's funny, you bring up the amount of innings that they led, and it was funny. I was listening to the broadcast last night. Obviously, I think it was Austin Riley cranks one in the 3rd inning. They take a 1-0 lead. And just as the announcer is saying, the Braves have barely led in this series. As soon as the Braves go up, the Phillies strike right back, and then boom, Castellanos hits his first home run of the night. And they tie the game up at the bottom of the 3rd, right after the Braves took the lead, right? And I thought that was the epitome of this series. You had the Game 2, obviously. They were up 4-0. The Braves come storming back. Phillies just didn't have enough time to catch up at the end of the game once they lost the lead, right? But they bounced back every single time they went down in this series. It bounced back immediately. Yeah. And instead of it being in Game 2, they just bounced back like a motherfucker in Game 3 and scored 10 runs on your head. So, this team just seems to be built different. I know we're in the same spot as we were last year with basically the same exact layout, right? 2 wild card wins, 3 out of 4 wins in the NLDS, and now you're in the NLCS, right? But this team,
except you get the host the NLDS.
Different. Yeah. You get to host the NLD. Yeah, that's different for sure. That's better. This team just feels different, man. Obviously, we can get into like the actual logistics of the game last night, but just generally speaking, this team is ridiculous. And maybe we can start it at the top with Castellanos and Trey, but Trey Turner talked about this before game 2. Going into that game, he obviously had the 2 errors in the outfield in that game. Next 2 games, he cranks one in back-to-back
100%.
games, 4 for 4 from the plate last night, 4 different hits in that game. Incredible glue guy, right? He makes another double play last night. Like it just doesn't stop with this guy, and it almost feels like you could say this about multiple players, but it's like the Phillies go as Trey goes, or the Phillies go as Castellanos goes, or the Phillies go as Bryce Harper goes. And that's the beautiful thing about this team right now. But I'll throw it to you, man.
No, 1,000%. And mind you, Trey Turner was 0 for 17 lifetime against Spencer Strider heading into last night's ball game. He had never gotten a hit off of Spencer Strider before last night. And the dude comes in and goes 4 for 4. Now, obviously, 3 for 3 against Spencer, I believe, and then the last one was against the bullpen.
Yeah.
But you are right, and that's the biggest thing here. And I want to go back to this comment by Brett. Rojas saved my heart last night, and that kid making that play out in left center field saved the Phillies, night, and also saved the Phillies season, because that changes this series holistically. If that ball hits the wall, if he drops it when he leaps into the wall, whatever the case may be. And I think to your point about, the Phillies go as X goes or Y goes, they have so many guys on this team that play a purpose and play their role. Go back to when Johan Rojas first came up, and we were sitting here talking about him on this show. And is he an everyday player? Can he help this team in the postseason? Like, the dude was just in Double-A 2 seconds ago, right?
Yeah, we did not know.
He might not be much of a threat at the plate, but he gives you that security out in center field, a la last night.
Yeah.
Brandon Marsh gets moved to left defensively, a la last night, right?
Plays
and then you
better in the left field, right?
And you get to the thumpers.
Yeah.
And that's what's different about this team. And you're 1,000% correct. I'll circle back around to it later. But this team's confidence compared to last year, don't get me wrong, they were confident last year. But again, it's the storyline. You were the 6th seed.
More of a ride.
You were just happy. It was the first time in over a decade you've been back. Like, you're just almost happy to be there. And you were the underdog in almost every series. Now it's different. Now with the roster improvements, Trey comes over. That's what's supposed to push the needle for you. But when you get to these bats, man, Scotty, that's why this team's the most dangerous team left in the postseason. And don't get me wrong. Well, if and when we get to that spot against the Rangers or the Astros again, we'll talk about it, and it'll be a crazy series. But the fact that this team can hit you 1 through basically 8.
Yeah.
With guys that can take over a game. And I'm being serious. Like, Brandon Marsh, you don't look at as can take over a game. Brandon Marsh can go 3 for 4 like that with a home run and a double.
5 hits in his last 2 games.
Last
2 games played, 5 hits.
He's your 8-hole hitter who
and
has
a home run.
sparingly played. Think about that. Think about the team player.
No time to get a rhythm.
To sit back and say, the lefty's on the mound. He's going with the righty and Pache. My time will come. My moment will come. I'll get starts. And then to just come out and deliver the way he has the last 2 games is unbelievable. But I would ask you this. So Trey Turner, first and foremost, he's that guy, right, Scott? Like, he's that difference maker, man. And you and I came on after game 2 when he had the errors and whatever. And we basically said, man, they can't be the reason you lose games.
Yeah.
Well, since that moment, not only have they not been a reason you've lost a game, they've been the reasons you're winning these ball games. Okay. So he was phenomenal last night, 4 for 4 the bomb. Bryce Harper obviously was just getting put on base last night, basically, because they couldn't pitch to him anymore, because that's how goddamn dominant he is. And we didn't do a show after game 3.
Yeah.
That performance in game 3 was unbelievable.
Yeah.
But Nick Castellanos was the best player of the series. I know that sounds crazy with what Bryce Harper did and how great Trey Turner was.
You're not wrong, though.
Nick Castellanos, if there was an MVP award for the NLDS round, Nick Castellanos should be the recipient of that award.
Yeah.
He was back-to-back games with 2 home runs. That second one last night, that put the Braves out of it. And I know they scared the Phillies, and we were holding on to our chairs at the end with the bullpen. That home run came in at 100 and went out at about $1.15. That was, I'm being serious. I've watched Kyle Schwarber hit triple tanks, third level in Citizens Bank Park. I watched Bryce Harper 2 days ago put one in the upper tank. That might have been the hardest and furthest hit baseball I've seen in Citizens Bank Park. That thing was unbelievable. So, Nick Castellanos, you are, as Harry Callis would say, the man.
Yeah.
He's unbelievable, dude.
You look around, man. You look around at the differences between this team and the team from last year, and it's you're going to have to compare them, right? They go back to back to the NLCS. It's going to happen. But you look at the additions that they made over the offseason, right? You bring in Trey, you boost up the bullpen, you find Rojas during the season, right. You find Pache during the season, so on and so forth. But it's almost like you get Nick Castellanos too. Like, you sign Trey, but it's almost like you signed 2 all-star players in one offseason because this is a completely different player than what we even saw in the postseason last year from Castellanos, man. The confidence, the level of confidence, it's almost like he's hit this like mindset where he cannot be defeated. Like, and it's a lot of these players on this team that it looks like that at times, man. Bryce Harper, right? Once he's locked in, it's over for that pitcher. And that's kind of what it feels like with Castellanos right now. And that's crazy to say. But this man has 4 home runs in 2 games, 2 home runs in back-to-back games. The first player to ever do that in history in a postseason. I mean, the bat flip. And he did it twice, man. After the second one, he hit it even harder. Yeah. And it's like, as he gathers home runs under his belt in this postseason, it's almost like the confidence is just going through the fucking roof.
Right.
And I just remember, right, I remember in the count, in that last home run that he hit, that last at-bat, I remember him stepping away from the plate, just taking a quick but deep breath. And then he just comes back over to the plate, locked in.
He had fouled a couple off. He had just missed a couple.
There's a couple where you're like, oh, is that going out?
Yeah.
And then he finally just sends it. And Liam, his son, I mean, that shit is
that's
just
awesome.
It's a movie scene, man. That's that whole Citizens Bar Bedlam at the bank. That whole scene is just like a movie playing out before our eyes, man. And Philadelphia gets to be the center of the world in that moment, and it's a beautiful thing, man.
I'll throw this to you. I think that at bat, looking back on it, was the epitome, was the perfect analogy of what this series was. Muscle on muscle, right?
Yeah.
2 division rivals with stacked lineups, with 2 great starters at the top, very evenly matched, mano a mano. Who's tougher? Who's going to throw the knockout punch? And you get to that at bat, and Spencer Strider really only throws 2 pitches, but we know what he loves to throw, right?
Yeah.
And my man was still pumping 100 in the 7th. Like he threw 101 in the 7th. Okay, but if you go back to that at bat, like you said with Nick, just missed a couple, kept fouling him off. 98, 98, 99, 98, fouling him off, right? And then it's almost like Spencer Strider said, enough, dude. Like, I put a little more oomph under this, but guess what?
Yeah.
Nick met him at the plate with a little more oomph as well and said, I see you, checkmate, have fun in the offseason. That was unbelievable. Yeah, I saw this clip as well this morning on MLB Network. That he's there's definitely an arrogance that comes with Nick Castellanos, and a little, like, my uncle texted me. He said he's such a jerk off, but I love it. Like, I don't mean, like, I'm not saying it as like he's a bad person.
I know what you mean, though.
The way he answers questions is unbelievable.
Is there a question,
bro?
You know what I mean? Like, that just threw me. Like,
oh my!
After the game, you're excited as hell, and you're just gonna be a jerk off like that to the commentator. But like you said, it fits Philadelphia. Honestly, you love it if you're a Philadelphia fan.
100%.
But shout out to Castellanos, man. And looks like a completely different player.
I'll also say this to get into Rob Thompson a little bit and to talk about the pitching, because this. Let me go back and find this comment here. This is unbelievable. You held the Atlanta Braves to 8 runs in 4 games, and if you take out the 6 and 7, if you take out Game 2, in 3 of the 4 games, you held them to 3 runs. 3 games, you held them 3 runs. That lineup that hit 307 home runs this year, that lineup that people were saying might be the greatest lineup in MLB history. It was spectacular. But before I get to Rob Thompson and the pitching staff and the bullpen, I just when it comes to Nick Castellanos in this lineup, and I know Kyle Schwarber's struggling, and I know Alec Boehm's struggling, and Bryson Stott had a bad night last night. Kudos to Rob for not messing with this order. The bottom line is you're winning baseball games. The bottom line is you're still hitting for power. Don't mess with it because those guys will come. And also, when you have a guy like Nick who's hitting the way he is, when you have that in the 7 hole, that way you can stretch out this order, that's a difference maker in the long run when you get into the NLCS, into the World Series. Because other teams don't have that, man.
Yeah.
Like you look at the Astros, you get to their 7 hole, like, the top half of their orders, ridiculous.
Yeah.
Get to their 7 hole, you're looking at like Mauricio Dubon, who's a nice player. He's a good player. There's no thump down there in the bottom end of their lineup. You look at the Phillies, so a lot of people would say, oh, well, Nick's hitting this way, move him up to cleanup, more opportunity. No. Let them stretch out that order.
Yeah.
Let them protect. Right now, Alec's struggling. Protect Alec with JT Realmuto behind him and Bryce Harper in front of him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Protect Kyle Schwarber with Trey Turner and Bryce Harper following him. Don't mess with it. Don't tinker it. But what I will say to you now is the question of the day.
Yeah.
How do you think Rob Thompson handled the bullpen last night? Honestly, they won. They held him to 1 run. Again, it seems like a head scratcher that at the end of the day, he pressed every right button, and I'm the fool. But Scotty, I wanted to rip my eyeballs out watching the way he handled this bullpen last night. I can't complain. They advanced. It was phenomenal. I was on the edge of my seat. But what the hell happened last night?
It was interesting, man, and obviously there's been a lot of talk about the order in which Thompson brought guys out of that bullpen. You had Kimbrel come out in the 7th or the 7th. Yeah, it was the 7th, and then he went through into the 8th. Yeah, that was interesting. You had Alvarado out there at the bottom of the 6th. Like it was interesting to say the least. But I think it's one of those situations where, in hindsight, it's always 2020, and you look back and you think about it. He's playing situational baseball, and sometimes, most situations, maybe that doesn't work. But I think agree. he was throwing a length of trust into that bullpen, but also just playing in huge spots, right, where he needed Alvarado to come in, handle that batter, and then maybe get through 2 more. Then it was Kimbrel time to kind of save the day because Alvarado was in a really rough spot. Once he was coming out of the game. I think he walked 2 guys in a row through like 7 balls in a row or something at one point.
And then Kimbrel walked the next batter as well, and then threw a wild pitch.
The stress level's going up by 1,000.
And then Pilar doesn't run home. Slam or a
they're sitting there, man. So it was very unorthodox, and I think what you can say about Rob Thompson is that that's kind of who he is. Like it's crazy. It's madness. He's like a mad scientist back there, but somehow it's worked in back-to-back seasons so far.
It has.
And I think you got to tip your cap to him. Like, yeah, it looks crazy to us, and maybe it is goddamn crazy. It is. Like, it is. It worked, and he's pressed all the right buttons throughout this postseason so far.
Yeah.
Just the little things, man. Knowing when to play Marsh, when not to play him, when to throw Pache out there. Right. Just all of the little things, right? Tweaking the lineup here and there when it's
even think when they get the lefties, like you mentioned, like starting who, but the layout of the order where he splits up the lefties every 2 batters. Where if you have to go to the bullpen, and it's tough to kind of map that out for the opposing manager. I tweeted it out last night. Okay, so I agree with you, and in hindsight, I can't. I need to. I'm just going to shut up, and I love Topper, and I'm just going to move on from it. Right? I agree with the fact that he is very situational, and he looks at how can I just get to the next inning? How can I survive this little storm and keep it where we are and keep this lead? So that's where he goes to Sir Anthony early and Alvarado, and then when Alvarado gets into trouble. My question isn't even really there. It kind of is because it's unorthodox, but then you get to the 9th, all right? And you let let me try to get this out. You let Gregory Soto trot back out there for the 9th. Okay. Well, who's up to bat?
I was so nervous for that, man. Like, God.
But here's my question. Who's up to bat? Are the lefties coming up? Like, they kept talking about Ahmed Rosario. The dude hit like 4th in the inning. Like, he wasn't like scheduled to be up. So hold on. So you leave the lefty in for a plethora of right-handers. And then Soto gets hit around. I mean, I could have told you that was coming. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, again, ends up working. Beautiful. Matt Strom's a hype man. Awesome. You went to another lefty. How does that situation call for a lefty? I'm like, dude, I don't know. And I know I shouldn't like be banging the table for Jeff Hoffman to get in the game after I questioned him being in the 8th in a 1-run game in game 2 and it didn't work out. But like, if there's ever been a scenario for the right-hander who pumps gas to come in, it's probably there. Not the left-hander. But it works out. And Matt Strom gets a pop-up and he gets a ground. And
let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Do you trust Rob Thompson?
Yeah.
Like with his decision making. Like I know you said it's crazy, but when you're in the game, did you feel like Rob Thompson was pressing the right buttons to win?
No, not in the game. Not in the game.
It's an interesting conversation because this is a man that has won a lot of games, but at the same time, he does a lot of weird and different things, but yeah. I think you gotta shout out Dave Dombrowski in that case, giving him the right options to use.
That's true.
In that bullpen.
This bullpen is it's much deeper, right?
Yeah.
Last year in a situation, if you would have used Sir Anthony and Alvarado in the 6th and 7th, you might be screwed when you get to the 8th and 9th because you really have no options, right? Like at that point last year, wow, I'm drawing a blank on my guy. Like Brogdon's probably throwing in the 9th inning. You know what I mean? And we're really shitting ourselves in that moment.
Yeah. I was reading the comment there.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
No, I agree.
Confidence.
I can't believe this is happening again. This ride, man. Another piece of this game, another piece of the last 2 games, because again, we didn't even really get to talk about game 3 at all. The starters, man, Aaron Nola and Ranger Suarez. Now, so many people, ourselves included, kind of question momentum, right? When you lose a game like that in Atlanta, you had your foot on their throat. It should have been over. They come back. Does the momentum shift? Did you wake up? The sleeping giant. There you go, Brett. That's what it was the other day. Did you wake them up, right? And the starters in Aaron Nola and Ranger Suarez put all of that to bed from the first inning on. Aaron Nola was spectacular in game 3, man. Like shut down stuff. Yeah. Ranger Suarez did the same thing. And I think what was so huge last night to look back upon is Nola did it as well, right? You were down 1-0 in both ball games. Both starters gave up a solo shot, but then settled right back down and were able to get out of the inning, induce ground balls. Like Suarez gets the double play last night to end the inning. Yeah. That's huge, man, because if that inning gets out of hand, if you let them get to you, well, now, even if it's just one more run, like last night you went 3-1. What happens if that's 2 runs in that inning? That changes the whole game, the whole rest of the ball game.
Yeah.
So I shout out to both starters. Obviously, Wheeler in the loss was phenomenal. Bullpen's been great, and again to Brett or TR's comment, I forget who it was up there. You hold this Atlanta Braves team to 3 runs in 3 games and 8 runs in 4 games.
Historically, the best offense ever.
Seriously.
Yeah, and so like. No, I wanted to talk about the starters real quick before I move to that point, actually. But I thought Nola was great, man. And you've seen him in back-to-back outings now, come out, give you great performances in big spots in the postseason. The first series, obviously, closing it out, and then this series getting the bounce-back win after the tough Game 2 loss. So seeing Nola just, kind of rise up in that moment, it was a beautiful thing. And
it was.
As of right now, right, and we still got a long postseason to go. We got about a half a postseason left to go here. Maybe even you could call it 3/4 with 2 7-game series left, right?
Yeah.
As of right now, I would pay Aaron Nola and I would bring him back. Like as of right now, I would do it. we still got a long postseason to go. We got to see how he shows up in these.
He was great through this point last year as well. In the NLCS, he started to struggle, and then from that point on.
So,
but we'll see, man. He does seem a little more rested this year. Yeah, no, it's a great point, and that's why I think this Phillies team is even more dangerous than last year. And you know, really, I don't even know if they've hit their stride, really, dude. Like when you look at, they beat Atlanta last night. They hit 3 solo home runs to win that game. Like the offense.
Schwarber and Bohm, you said it earlier. Yeah. Schwarber and Bohm, 2 of your best and biggest bats, right? Schwarber specifically, one of your, if not your most powerful bat, did pretty much nothing in this series, right? Like they gave you a little bit of nothing. I think maybe Bohm had an RBI or 2.
He had an RBI. Schwarber doubled to lead off game 1 against Strider, and that was
about it. That was about it. And you still have enough talent on this roster, in this lineup, to carry those 2, right? And you're obviously not getting much from Rojas either at the plate. So 3 guys basically getting carried by this lineup, and you're just getting production from all over the lineup, man. That kind of speaks for itself. But when you look at this, man, the thing that gives me so much confidence going forward, obviously the Diamondbacks take out the 100-win Dodgers. That makes it look a little bit better. You get home field advantage in the NLCS. That's a lot better. But the reason I feel so confident, man, it feels like, one, you talked about the starters. We have elite pitching. Like even in the loss, you had Wheeler out there, 7 innings, 10 Ks. Like he still had a great game, right?
Game through 5 2/3.
Ranger Suarez 2-0 versus the Braves. You have Aaron Nola come out, get the 2 wins against the Marlins and the Braves. They have elite pitching, and the lineup that you're going to play, maybe, I mean, the Astros are a little scary, right? Just with the experience that they present. But you're not going to face a better lineup than this Atlanta Braves lineup. Like, that was the best of the best. That's why everybody said this is the World Series of the postseason, because your pitching matchups, this is as hard as it's going to get. You had 2 Ranger outings against the best lineup in baseball for this season, and maybe of all time based on the numbers, regular season wise, right? So it's not going to get tougher in that sense. I'm not sleeping on any of those teams that are left in this.
No, but you're right. When you're talking like high stress, high leverage, right, spots in the postseason, almost every inning is high stress against that Braves order. Like no matter how you slice it, man. Acuna, Albies, Riley. We better get the first out here and not let Acuna get on base, right? Olsen, Ozuna, it goes up and down. Michael Harris was the 9-hole hitter. Like, I do agree, and don't get me wrong. The Arizona, you're not sleeping on the Diamondbacks, right? No one should.
No,
they're here for a reason. They swept the Dodgers, but let's call a spade a spade. The Dodgers had no pitching. None. None. The Phillies don't have that problem. So we'll see what that lineup looks like against actual pitching. And the beautiful thing about wrapping the Braves up in 4 last night was now starting Monday, it sets your rotation up perfectly against the Arizona Diamondbacks with Wheeler, Nola, Ranger, Walker/Sanchez, Wheeler, Nola, Ranger over a 7-game span. And that's an underlying story as well. But yeah, man, to your point about the pitching and Aaron Nola, like right now, like obviously it's an off-season conversation, but in this moment, I know it sounds crazy because it's only 2 starts. He's done enough to get my respect back because this is huge. And I'll tell you what it reminds me of. I don't know if this is a great analogy or not, because one's like regular season and one's just 2 games over the postseason. But remember when we were heading into last year's Eagles season and that roster was stacked?
Yeah.
But what was our question mark? What is Jalen Hurts?
Yeah.
And if Jalen Hurts can be X, this team can be good. If Jalen Hurts can be Y, this team can be great. Well, Jalen Hurts was X, Y, and Z all put together, and this team went to a Super Bowl, and they were phenomenal. Aaron Nola was the talking point coming into this series. Yeah. We know the lineup. Wheeler's alone at the top of the order. Aaron Nola is this X factor. What is Aaron Nola? Because he's been up and down so badly this season. Aaron Nola's been X, Y, and Z so far. Yeah. And that's a difference maker along this road back to a World Series. Because if you get this version of Aaron, that 1-2 punch is back with him and Wheeler. It's not as scary or daunting if it's just Wheeler.
Yeah.
Like if you're an opposing team and all right, I got Zach Wheeler to start the series, but then, it's Nola and bullpen games. They pull Suarez early. Like, if you're an opposing team, that's a confidence builder. That if you get past this hump in Wheeler, you're okay. You don't have that anymore with the way that Nola's pitching.
I think when you think about it, and you can argue to yourself who has been better so far in this postseason between Wheeler and Nola, that right there is what we're talking about. Like, if we can have that conversation, then we are in a great spot.
Job's done. Yeah,
exactly. So, I'm impressed. Obviously, Ranger has shown his stuff. He got pulled a little bit early in the game one. He gets to go into the fifth inning, I believe, last night, or even the sixth.
Through five. He pitched five. How's he so cool? Like, he's just so effing
Did you
calm.
see the one ground ball that came right to his feet?
Acuna at that,
He bends over really slowly, takes one step towards the first base and then just lets it ride.
Delivers.
But I don't understand how he's just chilling in that moment. That was the last out of the inning as well, man. He's just a cool, smooth operator, man. He fits in with this. That's what we're talking about here, man. This team, the personalities are just, you see Alvarado come out of the bullpen just gassed up, ready to go. Bigger guy, right? Throws heat. I mean, the team is just so beyond fun, and I think that's the best part of it. They have fun, they're confident, but this time. Yeah. It's a lot more serious as well, right? It's a lot more.
And I think everybody is playing their role at 110%. And he did, man. Ranger is
a question
to a Gold Glove pitcher as you can get.
A question I heard being discussed this morning. I know we talked about Rojas. Obviously, not the greatest at the plate right now, but he can get much, much better, I'm sure.
Right. If Michael Harris doesn't make a phenomenal play, he has an RBI single.
He has an RBI, man. Shout out to Michael Harris. That dude was making some insane catches that series. Rojas, is he your center fielder for the future? Is that your guy going into next season? Obviously, barring a superstar acquisition like a Mike Trout. I don't think that's going to happen, but
I think so, man. Obviously, the conversation becomes, what do you do with Reese after this offseason? Is Bryce ever going back out to right field? Obviously, they're much better defensively with Schwarber out of the field. So, let's just say you brought Reese back to alternate as DH in first base. Well, then Bryce is DH. Well, then where's Schwarber going? You know what I mean? Yeah. So if Reese doesn't come back and Bryce is set in stone, your first baseman, and then Schwarber can almost permanently DH. Yeah. And I think even beyond just starting next year, I think Rojas is here for the long haul out in center field. The kids just got it, man. He's smooth.
Yeah.
He's quick to first step out in the outfield. He commands the outfield. Think about that. He's so young. He just got called up 2 minutes ago. And he controls that outfield. He calls off Nick Castellanos. He calls off Brandon Marsh. So, I think he's kind of earned that. And again, I think that's a difference in the Phillies as well compared to previous Phillies teams and other Philly team organizations throughout is let the talented kids play, man. If he can play, he can play. You got same thing with Kirkering. I feel like in the past, they would have brought Rojas up in July or August or whenever they did. He could have flashed all he wanted, hit 300, showed the speed, showed the glove, and they would have been like, he's our future, and send him back down and let the veterans play. No, he can help you win right now. Let him play, and they are. And that's, again, kudos to Rob Thompson and Dave Dombrowski for allowing that to happen because, not to bring up his name, but Girardi isn't letting that happen, right? If Girardi's here, Didi Gregorius is still in the starting lineup. So I don't even know, man.
Shout out to what TR is saying as well, man. He has no problem with Bryce on first. That's something that didn't even really get discussed is how he just maneuvered through and just
smoothly it's been. Yeah, he missed a pick last night. Yeah. But it ended up not costing them at all. They obviously got out of the inning, but he's been really good.
It's crazy. Hopefully he's all right. Obviously had a little scare last night.
Yeah. Well, you know what was funny about that to think about that, right? Yeah. Obviously my heart went straight to my ass last night when that happened. And I was just like, dude, if he's done, if that had something to do with the surgically repaired elbow, there's just no, okay, yeah, great. We won. But I know they're still uber talented and they could still beat the Diamondbacks without him. But you ain't beating the Rangers or the Astros without Bryce, man. And it was very like Carson Wentz-esque of that MVP year, right? The torn ACL. But after I kind of calmed down after 2 seconds, I thought to myself, like, it wouldn't make sense that it messed up his elbow.
Yeah.
Because it was like it was because he was even able to hit last year with it completely messed up and torn.
Yeah.
All it was the throwing motion.
Yeah.
So how would getting ran into, like, what was
for all we know,
rupture it like that? And then even if it ruptured it, couldn't he still technically? I don't know. I'm not. No.
For all we know, he could have just got hit in the funny bone, maybe lost feeling in it.
Yeah, he said.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Catch a knee to the funny bone, you lose feeling in your arm that you had surgically repaired. That's going to feel a little bit weird and be a little scary. So, I'm happy. It doesn't seem like anything has come of that.
He came back out to play the field in the 9th, which was the telltale sign that I needed to see. Yeah. And then, my God, Bryce Harper celebrated like I've never seen Bryce Harper.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. So I'm celebrated. I wanted to ask you a question, though.
Yeah, go ahead.
So just peeking forward a little bit to this Diamondbacks series, when you look at how the Phillies performed against Spencer Strider, and mind you, I think Spencer Strider played pretty well given the circumstances.
He did.
Like 3 runs. I mean, he gave them a chance to win the game, and that's 100%. All you can ask for from your ace. When you look at Spencer Strider compared to the strong arms on the Diamondbacks unit, how does he rank in your eyes compared to those 2 guys?
Strider blows him away.
Yeah,
like Gallen's unbelievable. He's really good, and Merrill Kelly is a very good pitcher. Again, I know they just swept the Dodgers. They don't have this experience. They have to come here. Like, remember when people were wondering if Jesus Luzardo was going to come to the bank and frustrate the Phillies lineup? And he wasn't bad. Don't get me wrong. He was good. They got his pitch count up, and that's why they got him out of the game. But you don't know what you're walking into until you come to the bank and get smacked in the mouth with reality. And Spencer Strider is a superstar. He's a Cy Young caliber pitcher. He's probably going to win the Cy Young this year.
Yeah.
Zach Gallen is Zach Gallen's an all-star. Spencer Strider's a superstar.
I got you.
So when you're able to handle that, throw in the combination of the lineups, right, and the wear and tear on our arms compared to, versus the Braves versus what's going to happen against the Diamondbacks, it'll be interesting, man. I can't wait to dive a little bit more into that series. Obviously, you look at the top of their order with Corbin Carroll and the way he's able to get on base, and Tommy Pham somehow was traded there at the All-Star break and has become, like, I think he was in game 1 against the Dodgers. I think Tommy Pham was 4 for 4 before
he was
Miguel Rojas.
Crazy.
He was 4 for 4 before Miguel Rojas had an at bat. That's how crazy that game was. But yeah, dude, like, even this, and apparently security had to tell Phillies fans to stop because they got calls from the Braves bullpen. Because the Braves bullpen was being heckled too much last night.
Oh my!
So that's the last thing I wanted. I wanted to come full circle back to the red carpet, and go ahead.
I wanted to give you one more thing just for the Phillies moving forward and things they can improve on. I know we talked about Schwartz and Bohm. Obviously, they can be better, but last night 0 for 6 running runners in scoring position.
Yeah,
and the night before 3 for 10. So even with scoring 10 runs, they were 3 for 10 with runners in scoring position. In that game 3 win back in Philly as well. So meat left on the bone, my man.
And I think that it's weird to think about, right? Because you want to say, the further you advance in the, right now, you can't keep doing that.
Right.
But on the other hand, it's like you were still able to handily beat that team while doing that. I look at the Diamondbacks, and there's nothing that screams at me. Again, not to take them lightly. I'm not trying to. But there's nothing that screams at me that says, oh, you can't leave runners on against the Diamondbacks. If you did it against the Braves, you might do it against the Diamondbacks. I'm not suggesting that it's okay, but it's not the end of the world. If the long ball's going, the long ball's going, and this lineup will still be able to produce against that team.
That's a good point.
But to have a good one, TR. See you Monday, bro, to get ready for game 1. But to kind of come full circle, right? Back to that red carpet. Let's send the Braves off with a nice little a nice little funeral, right? Nice little service right now, and send them off with this. I expected more. I don't know why. I know they're a rival. I know they're an NL East rival, and this goes back years. But when I think of when I think about the Atlanta Braves, besides last year's divisional round series when it's just playoff moments, it's not like Eagles Cowboys for like the Phillies Mets is Eagles Cowboys as you know what I mean? Like the Braves. Yeah. But the Braves are kind of like they were kind of like the Giants to me, where there's bad blood, but it's not that much bad blood, or the Commanders, right?
Yeah.
I expected more from a world championship organization.
Yeah.
I expected less complaining for a team that has won over 210 games over the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Shame on me. But from the fan base to the players to everybody, that is disgusting. Orlando Arcia, again, we didn't get to talk about it, but the Bryce Harper Game 3 moment, stares him down twice, has the game of his life. It was incredible. To come out after Game 3, and Travis Thurno as well, and whine and complain and bitch and moan about that Bryce Harper was never supposed to hear that. First of all, if you're going to talk shit, just stand on it, my man. Or if you want to backtrack a little bit, if you want to, not get caught with your pants down, just say, you know what, I was in the moment. It was a big win. I meant no disrespect to Bryce, but it's what I said. That's it. That would have been completely fine. To say he was never supposed to hear it, and then Travis Thurno with the balls to come out and complain about not trusting the media anymore, and it's the sanctity of the clubhouse. And look, the reporters are there, especially if he kept saying it over and over the way it was reported. If he said it one time and he didn't know there were 2 reporters in the corner and it got leaked, whatever. Dog, there had to have been dozens of reporters in that clubhouse, and you were going around yelling it.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So, and then he comes out last night, and you're in the middle of a season-ending situation. Your backs are against the wall, and you're focused on the fans. Not just focused on the fans, you're acting like a toddler.
Yeah.
Like you're doing some shit like
this. That blew my mind, yeah.
And sticking your tongue out at fans. Bro, to the fact that Ronald Acuna Jr., the man who flaps his wings going around first base and everything, he had to pull him and say, stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then even Ronald, to the tweet you sent me, we don't know if it's, I don't know if it's valid.
We gotta make sure that is real.
I'll throw it out there. If you guys see it, let us know if it's real or not. But there was some quotes that Scotty sent me from New York Times, so it could be real. That Ronald Acuna Jr. was just complaining, just about the fans and about reporters and the media and not trusting them. And I've seen things about them giving the Phillies the series, and it's just disgusting, man. Like, what are we doing?
They handed this is the quote unquote from the New York Post. They handed Philadelphia the series. That was from Ronald Acuna.
If it's real.
Media being in the media room, right? No, it's hilarious to look back on everything that transpired in this series, to look at what the Braves did this season, and then to come out and have the same exact result. They thought everything was going to be new and improved. You had Acuna play an entire season, right? He didn't have to come back in the playoffs and get his footing, anything like that. He comes into the playoffs as the regular season MVP, and he goes, 2 for 14 in the series?
It was horrible.
From the plate. I mean, and you talk about huge moments. So when I'm looking at that roster, I'm looking at what is supposed to be the difference with this team, right? And it's all these guys playing at these high levels. What did Olsen do in this series? Like, what did Acuna do in this series? Like, you have Olsen, the NL leader in home runs, right? 53 home runs this season. Doesn't crank one in this series. Ronald Acuna, the MVP of the league, right? He comes out and goes 2 for 14. You just see the big names not show up in the big spots for the Braves, and you see the big names show up in the big spots for the Phillies, and that is the difference. You talked about mano y mano, strength versus strength. Our strength proved to be stronger in this series, and honestly, I just don't want to hear any more conversations based around like Bryce Harper and Ronald Acuna right now. Like, I don't want to hear it.
That's what makes me laugh about the original complaint about the playoff format, because these teams are sitting around for 4, 5, 6 days while these other teams are getting to play competitive baseball games and blah, blah, blah. Great players show up.
Exactly.
Big time players make big time plays. Ronald Acuna Jr., nothing.
Yeah.
Matt Olson with his 53, 50, whatever the hell he hit in the regular season, 0. Austin Riley seemed to show up.
Yeah, he did. He's got that dog in him.
And you know what's funny, man? The Diamondbacks wrapped up their series Wednesday night. We wrapped up ours Thursday night. We don't play till Monday night. It's 4 days for the Diamondbacks. It's 3 for us. Is anybody or it's almost as long as their layoff was for the. So are we going to start talking about that layoff between every series now? Like, what are we doing here, man?
Right.
You're really going to excuse 104+ win team that hit 300+ home runs that it was too much rest? Don't get me wrong. I believe that there's something to it. Like, I get, like, the Phillies are playing, this, win or go home type of baseball, and they're warming up and you're sitting there, but like, it wasn't like it was like a week.
It's not just a 100, win Braves team that comes out here and plays the Phillies. This is a Braves team that had inadequate level of pitching for the postseason. Like, that is the simple truth. Like, it was clearly laid out in these games that the Braves did not have enough pitching. And so you get the layoff from the regular season to the postseason. That should help them get guys back, right? This freed play, if they don't have that layoff. Like, come on. Like, that doesn't even make sense. So, like, it's always something when Philadelphia wins, right? When any Philadelphia team wins, there's always some built-in excuse. Like, they didn't play anybody, and the Eagles didn't play anybody in the postseason last year. It doesn't matter. You beat who's in front of you. And that's what it comes down to in each and every sport. And the Phillies, they seem to have the Braves number, man. It's crazy. It's crazy. But it's crazy how you can go from a regular season to a postseason, and then all of a sudden, this Phillies team is just better. They're the better team. Like, that is what it is. And that's where we're at. And
some teams are just like, again, it's why, don't get me wrong. I know in baseball, with the way before they added the extra wild card, and when it was just a 1-game winner get in type of wild card spot before, I get the regular season meant so much more. And that can be a positive because, like, I don't know, like, it is kind of cool, the fact that all those games mean so much, and it makes pennant races, and that's cool. But it's like, you can just tell that the Phillies are built for playoff baseball. And the Braves, like, look at the Braves and the Dodgers, for instance. And again, it does make you scratch your head how they won 100+ games if they had these shortcomings in their pitching staff. But it's emphasized against greater talent. So look at the Dodgers, who get swept, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, oh my!" But you had Bobby Miller and Lance Lynn throwing games 2 and 3.
Yeah.
What?
The Dodgers.
The Braves, Bryce Elder throwing game 3.
That ended their season right there.
Right. That's roster construct. That's on the GM. That's your own damn fault.
Because we bring out Ranger onto the mound, man, and I have 110% confidence in Ranger.
Let me ask you a question before we wrap up here, and we'll get the Eagles on Sunday for pregame. If it's such an issue, then explain to me how the Houston Astros are in their 7th straight ALCS. They basically win the division every year. They had a bye.
Right. Wild card buys. They've reached the ALCS in all different types of paths and fashion. Right.
Explain that to me. There. Right. And you know what's funny? Go back to now this year. The Phillies obviously hosted, right? But go back to last year. What do you want to complain about more? The 4 or 5 days off for the higher seeds, or would you rather be the Phillies who have to go on the road for a best of 3 to St. Louis and play Arenado and Goldschmidt and get by them, and then start 2 more games on the road in Atlanta versus that team before you even play a home playoff game? You're going to complain to me about scheduling and days off?
They have there's no room for complaints, man. This was a series where you got to play the first 2 games.
Oh, and you know what's even more comical? The fact that I promise you the league does something about it. Not that they'll change the playoff format, because that would need to be passed through the CBA and everything, but I guarantee you there's something in terms of,
shortening up the layover.
Yeah, like I don't know how they'll do it, but yeah, like if you're a wild card team,
make the wild card winner play the division winner
the next day.
Yeah, that's the only way, right? Like that way the Phillies can't have Wheeler on the mound as soon as they could in this series, right? Like that's the difference that they're
But then what happens going forward? Like again, the Diamondbacks win Wednesday night. They don't play till Monday night. Yeah. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So
you're going to shorten that too?
Right. It's funny to me, man, but whatever. Phillies.
Yeah, man. We bask in
back
glory.
In the NLCS, this time hosting the Arizona Diamondbacks the road. It's
Please,
right
God.
here.
Come on.
It's right here, man. And we'll be back Monday morning getting you ready for game 1. Eagles take on Zach Wilson and the Jets this Sunday. We'll be live for DSM pregame live before that one, breaking it all down for you. We'll also be live over on the Turf Talk YouTube channel Sunday morning, breaking down the entire Sunday slate. So big football Sunday coming up. The ALCS starts on Sunday afternoon as well, so that'll be fun. Rangers, Astros, and then we'll get back to the Phightins on Monday night. For myself, for Scotty, for DSM Media, have a great rest of your weekend.
Go Phightins, Red October.